The Tall Man. A story by C.K. Walker. We had always liked Mr. Winscott. He didn't mind when we used the sledding hill on his property, and he always gave out the best Halloween candy in the neighborhood. So when we heard that he'd been taken by the Tall Man, everyone was really bummed out. You wouldn't have heard of the Tall Man, so let me explain. The Tall Man has been a legend in our town for decades. Those who claim to have seen him say he's over 9 feet tall, slight and pale, with an exceedingly polite smile. My dad told me that the Tall Man is the collector. He likes things. Dad says his favorite things to take are sad people, empty buildings, and dreams. I have to admit, he's stolen away my dreams more than a few times. When Mr. Winscott didn't show up for church on Sunday, well, nobody thought it was weird. And then, when Monday rolled around, he wasn't at work with my dad. People started to whisper. My parents thought it was odd, but not particularly concerning. But then the rumors started that the Tall Man had gotten him. A kid from my class even said that he had seen the Tall Man in Mr. Winscott's house through a window. I told my parents what Jake had seen, but they only laughed. Tyler and I biked by Mr. Winscott's place every day after school to get to our friend Rory's house. We never stopped in front of Mr. Winscott's to try and see the Tall Man through the windows like Jake had. We never even slowed down. But one day, we played too late at Rory's. Since we didn't want to bike home in the dark, we called our parents and asked to sleep over. Tyler was allowed to, but I wasn't. I tried really hard not to look as I biked by Mr. Winscott's cul-de-sac. I almost made it, but my curiosity forced a backward glance at the house. The lights were on, and my eyes were drawn to a face in the window immediately, and I saw the Tall Man looking back at me. I choked in a panicked breath, and my foot missed the pedal as I tried to speed away on my bike. I stumbled only for a second, my eyes never leaving the face in the window, before pedaling home as fast as I could. The next morning at school, I told Rory and Tyler about the Tall Man. They didn't believe me, of course. They hadn't believed Jake either. I knew I had to show them, otherwise they would think I was a liar. We waited until dark, and then we biked to Mr. Winscott's cul-de-sac. The Tall Man was there, as I told them he'd be, watching us from the window above the front door. It was such a tall front door, and I thought the Tall Man must have been 10 feet high to see out the window above it. He was almost smiling, but his expression betrayed a certain displeasure. Tyler fell off his bike. Holy shit, run! We did. As soon as we cleared the cul-de-sac, we all began talking over each other in flustered panic. I can't believe we saw the Tall Man. Did you see the look on his face? We have to tell the cops. We went back the next morning with more friends, but the Tall Man was gone. We went back the next day, but again, could see no one behind the window. We began to wonder if the Tall Man only came at night. A few nights later, we sat in Rory's basement waiting for a pizza to arrive. We decided to sneak out and see if the theory was true. We quietly rode our bikes down the driveway into the street, and we took off for Mr. Winscott's house, torn between hoping Tall Man was there and praying that he wasn't. We saw him as soon as we biked into the cul-de-sac. He was standing there after all, and this time, he was outright frowning. He's mad, said Rory. He wants us to stay away. I don't get why he only comes at night, Tyler said as he snapped a picture. Don't, I hissed. Stop taking pictures. You'll only make him madder. Maybe he watches us in the daytime too, Rory suggested. Maybe we can only see him at night because that's when the porch lights come on and shines right into the window. It was a chilling thought. We decided to test Rory's theory the following Saturday, emboldened by the assumption that the Tall Man can only watch us but never come out. As soon as the sun came up in the morning, we biked to Mr. Winscott's. We had to get close, almost all the way to the beginning of his driveway, before Tyler swore he saw the Tall Man standing in the window. I made hand binoculars, and I squinted at the window for a few more minutes before Tyler suddenly said, "Let's go." He hopped back on his bike and pedaled off. We caught up to him a few blocks later. What the hell was that? I said. It was... Tall Man was there, but he looked different this time. Like, how? Rory asked. I don't know, he looked angry or just wrong somehow. It was days before we could convince Tyler to go back to the tall man's house, and even then he insisted on taking his teenage brother Matt with us. Matt wasn't impressed with our stories at all. He didn't believe us, but he came anyway for Tyler's sake. As soon as we got close enough to the tall man in the window above the door, Matt got off his bike. He stared and he squinted and he stared some more. He got closer than we had ever dared to go at night. We followed nervously behind him. Matt walked up to the driveway, then down the stone path to the front porch. We dared not follow that far. Then Matt went up to the porch stairs, right up to the door. "Holy fuck," he said, and a few more four little words, and suddenly Matt was running down the front porch, down the path, down the driveway, and out into the street where we waited. "What is it?" Tyler asked. "There's no tall man," he said, out of breath. "Call the cops, now." And he was right. It wasn't tall man after all. We stayed long enough to watch the police break down the door and cut the rotting corpse of Mr. Winscott from the ceiling where he had hung himself from the lamp fixture in his foyer. The body had decayed as if it were melting in the days that we had watched him from the road. Mr. Winscott had written no note and made no goodbyes, leaving behind only the sad imprint of the divorced middle-aged man suffering a sad, well-hidden depression. It was weeks before the town lost interest in the tragic suicide, and months before the kids stopped asking us to describe the body in all of its gory detail. Eventually, Tyler and Rory stopped talking about it. Everyone had moved on. Everyone except me. See, there was one detail that always bothered me. One thing I never told Rory or Tyler. About the first time I'd seen the tall man. The time I'd been alone. The thing was, I'd seen Mr. Winscott that night. He was sitting in his kitchen eating dinner. But I'd seen something else too, in the upstairs bedroom window. There had been an impossibly tall, impossibly pale man staring back at me, and he'd been politely smiling. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to, I guess, the first episode of Pixelated Spooktober. Well, technically it's the second day. We had something planned to upload on the first day, but it didn't go as planned, so I'm here reading you this story today. So thank you all for tuning in. This was The Tall Man, a short story. If you want to read this story for yourself, or if you want to follow along with my narration, which I actually don't know why you would want to do that. I kind of messed up on some parts, but I really hope that you enjoyed it. If you'd like to read the story for yourself, it will be down in the description below. All credit to the author. This is a really cool story. I liked it a lot. I like stuff like this, especially around this time of the year. It's kind of a really good, I guess, mood to get into. Kind of a campfire storytelling things. So we'll be doing stuff like this for most of October. We want to try and do an everyday upload until Halloween, but we don't know if we're going to be able to make that. We have very busy schedules. But yeah, my name's Captain Cordell, here for Pixelated Spooktober. Thank you all for watching.